Hello guys, it's Squadron. Hope you guys are having an amazing day. And as promised, I'm going to give you all the video that we talked about, and it's the documentary about the server called Ragnum. You guys have provided with the 10 likes that I asked for, and I'm very thankful to every one of you guys. And one more thing, I'm sorry for the bad quality for the pictures that we were about to find, but I had some restrictions while editing the video. Now it all started with the fields of Bayfield. Now I know it's not the best name, but that's the name that we gave him because there was a bay and there was a field. Pretty simple name, does the job. Now eventually that name gets changed for the settlement, but that's what everybody started with in the world back when it was Bayfield. And fun fact, the town was also called Gayfield, or as a joke, but as you said, the name does change. Now, as we can see here, the settlement was being built, and it kept growing more and more and more, until eventually became a village. Out of the village became a town. Out of the town eventually became a city. And then that city was given the name Primoris. Now the name Primoris is derived from the word first. It's the first ever settlement built in the whole server. And Primoris was a very beloved city by its own population. Now when Primoris was finalized, plans were starting to cook up for new towns and new expansions. Primoris had these ambitions and it started implementing them, and the first implementation came in the form of Torchwood, a town village near Primoris. It's in the fields between two rivers, a very productive land where horses and bees spawn, and these are the main resources of Torchwood, and it was to be planned out to give or provide the whole empire that was to be planned out with all the resources needed. The ambitions of Primoris were becoming clear. Now, the first nation to ever be created after the kingdom of Primoris was the first kingdom of Meinberg. Now, I say the first kingdom of Meinberg because there were several other kingdoms of Meinberg that play an important historical role for the nation itself. Now, Meinberg was founded by the following player known as Jerrybu or Powerful King. Powerful King had many positive aspects, some of which were being that he's very grindy, he's very trustworthy, and he liked to sacrifice a lot for his people. Now the thing is, when it came to that, he sacrificed too much. He was always seen as the weaker king or the weaker leader, and that was also a problem because his leadership skills, all in all, unfortunately, let's say they weren't the best. However, Meinberg does play a very important role because it was the first ever nation to be formed in the shadow of Primoris, which prompted other nations to rival Primoris and rival Meinberg and all other nations and become what they are today. Otherwise, no other nation would have had the guts to even be formed. All thanks to Meinberg, Ragnum has grown like that. Going back to Meinberg, Meinberg started off on the island of Riveria, a very beautiful island in a very important logistical position, and the so-called Perlic Ocean. It's a massive ocean where later on colonies and new nations will be built. And Riveria was the first area where Meinberg was formed, but the capital was first announced to be the city of Shadowgrass. Now, Shadowgrass was the second biggest city in the whole realm back then, or in the whole server. It was also, let's say, the third most beautiful. I mean, you can look at Meinberg, it's incomparable when it comes to beauty, but it did the job, it done a better job than other nations that were to be formed. Now, Shadowgrass or Meinberg were first formed under an alliance with Primoris, the kingdom of Primoris, and that alliance is also another reason why relationships with Primoris were scarred forever. when it came to making alliances. Now, there are multiple conflicts that appeared after that between the Kingdom of Primoris and the Kingdom of Meinberg, and every time a conflict arose, Primorians slurred the name of their capital city and just called them Shadow Ass, and that also stirred up things, and the name of Shadowgrass got changed, and eventually it was known as the city of Alveston. Now, talking about the leadership of Primoris, the king of Primoris is Squadron 454, a very cool guy. I know myself actually. He has very good leadership skills. He shaped Primoris itself and is known as a powerful king, unlike powerful king of Shadow Ass, who's not so powerful. And additionally to the Primorian leadership, there's also the Lord of Torchwood, Ashy Boy. He's a very well trusted player in the Kingdom of Primoris, and he helped build Torchwood to the fullest extent. Now, the third nation to ever exist was the nation of Found Village. Basically what happened is a player called LMK, the leader of Found Village, showed up and took over a default village, or like a village with AI villagers. It was already there since spawn. He named the village Found Village, and it was more of a failed state. Now, the population of Found Village was only 2, and they were fairly new to the world or to the server, but they never really done a lot of farming or grinding. They were always broke and weak. One day they were invited by the king of Shadow Ass, Powerful Ass, to come and visit Shadow Ass, and they showed up, and they had full iron armor or gold armor, and Powerful King or Jeriboo showed up with his notorious golden helmet and leather pants and his golden sword, and their opportunistic ideals kicked in, and they said to themselves, hey, let's attack him and take over the city that's way much better than our AI village. Now, as the assault was taking place, Powerful King started running away in his own city from these 2 intruders, asking for help from his own ally, Primoris. Primoris complied, and they showed up, having the king personally show up and stop whatever he was doing to save Powerful King. He killed those 2 players. Now, eventually those 2 players did get banned for trying to break rules multiple times and trying to grief and steal the whole time, and Found Village was no longer on the map. However, that incident did show how weak and badly developed Meinberg was and how broke they were. The king of Meinberg himself wasn't capable of providing a simple armor to at least intimidate any newcomers who were merely playing for a few days, and that further soured the relations between the Kingdom of Primoris and Meinberg. And those relations continued to sour because of further actions that Meinberg was undertaking. One of those actions was holding the continuous claim over Riveria where Meinberg originally started, even though the island was being very neglected by Meinberg itself. And the best claim they had for that was that they had a spider spawner there and they needed that for XP. But that was also a controversial claim because spider spawners are ass at creating XP. And it would just make for an ass XP income for Shadow Ass. Either ways, this pissed off Primoris because no newcomer was capable of creating a nation there, and an area of Riveria was just being left untouched. Now, Primoris did ask Meinberg to choose either Riveria or Shadowgrass, and they were reluctant to choose and did not do so, which, as we said, soured the relations even more between Primoris and Meinberg. Another incident that crumbled the relations between Meinberg and Primoris was when there was a raid taking place in Torchwood for better prices, and they asked for help from their ally. Coming to the aid of the Primorian king came Powerful Ass, King of Shadow Ass, with his leather pants, his golden helmet for a crown, and his golden sword that he miraculously got from the nether without dying. Now, Squadron 454, King of Primoris, told Powerful King to guard the one mending villager that was in Torchwood. Now the mending villager was a very important investment for Torchwood, or a very important asset, since that villager resembled half of the economy of Torchwood. Now, the order he got from Squadron was either to defend it, and if he can't do so, he should just block it off temporarily with their blocks, since Squadron forgot to do so himself, and the rest of the raid would be repelled by Squadron, so Powerful King did not have to risk his life. However, in the process, regardlessly of all Squadron's attempts, Powerful Ass was shot by a random arrow, and he started screaming. He was on half a heart and started to cowardly run away from the battlefield, causing the villager of Torchwood to die, enraging the King of Primoris himself, leading him to finally break the alliance between the Kingdom of Meinberg and the Kingdom of Primoris. Powerful Ass, King of Shadow Ass, begged him to not do so, because in doing so the economy of Meinberg would further collapse, and Squadron 454, King of Primoris, told him that he had to do so because he was seeing a very high rate of dependency that Meinberg or Shadowgrass were having to his kingdom. They were providing less than they were getting, therefore becoming dependent and acting more like a puppet state that would just drag Primoris down. He also added that this would become beneficial for Meinberg, because if they never learned how to grow without dependency, they would never become formidable on their own. After the alliance was broken between the two nations, the population of Meinberg was enraged, even more further enraged when they heard that this would also affect the trade prices they used to have from Primoris. The numerous Primorian market would be limited to them now, and they would have to pay more for what they used to get before. Another historical feature that took place after this failed alliance was the Primorian implementation of the 5 notorious conditions that they would need for any nation to enter an alliance with them. And those conditions were combat readiness, trustworthiness, trading potential, consistency in operational readiness. And seeing that Meinberg was only capable of obtaining one of these 5 conditions, they were in no way, shape, or form capable of creating an alliance with Primoris. And an alliance between Meinberg and Primoris was never to happen again, and this in turn also enraged Meinberg's citizens even more, and this also has an historical impact that will take place later on in the series. So far, we've talked about a lot of historical events that took place on the server of Ragnum, but the greatest events are yet to come, for nations are bound to fall, and others were bound to rise, and war was yet to come. Now, this is all for today's episode on the history of Ragnum. I hope you guys enjoyed my neutral and very non-biased documentary. Please leave a like to let me know that you guys have enjoyed the first episode of a new series. And leave your thoughts in the comments. I'm very thankful for you guys, and I hope you guys have a nice day.